Since September of 2022, I started the tradition of drawing different cartoon characters in different Halloween costumes for spooky season. I've now done it every single year since 2022, and I've made nearly 100 drawings of cartoon characters in Halloween costumes. These drawings always end up being some of my favorite drawings of the year, so here are my top 15 favorite cartoon characters and Halloween costume drawings I've made over the years. The first one is not super recognizable for anyone who's not a fan of Smosh, but the first one is Chris Griffin dressed as the Chosen from Smosh. I made this one last year, and I think this is just perfect. Matching Chris's energy with that character is perfect, and the guys who play that character most often love Family Guy, so it felt like the perfect marriage for that drawing. And up next is Mordecai and Rigby from the regular show, dressed as Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. One of my favorite things to do in this series is making them look like they're actually in costumes. They don't always need to look like they're just turned into that character. I want them to look like they're wearing a costume. So having Rigby wearing like a Jake onesie and then Mordecai's just wearing Finn's outfit and making it not just turning into the character, making them in the actual costume is one of my favorite things about it and why it's one of my favorite drawings. Up next is one from this year, and that is Roger from American Dad dressed as Aunt Gladys from Weapons. Roger is certainly notorious for his many different disguises, and this look of Aunt Gladys, her disguise in Weapons, is so like iconic to me now in the world of horror. So I wanted to take that and combine it, and I think it turned out so perfect. Up next is another drawing from this year, and it features characters that I've done almost every single year, and that is Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus dressed as Lex Luthor and Superman. Anytime I draw Dr. Doofenshmirtz, I love to give him an Inator that goes along with the costume. So for this year, it was the Hater Inator because he's dressed as Lex Luthor. And having Perry dressed as Superman is just so perfect because he also has his alter ego. And I just love how this one turned out combining these two characters from a movie I love and a show I love. Now, this next one is a little bit of a deep cut for those who are not just chronically online and chronically on TikTok, and that is Summer from Rick and Morty dressed as Alexander Hamilton. But it's more based around this trend from this summer where they were taking the Best of Wives and Best of Women song, where it sounds like Alexander's like sneaking out, and all these women were wearing these just crazy Alexander cosplays with this ridiculous goatee they would always give themselves. I absolutely love that trend, and adding like the Rick and Morty portal to it added a little bit more to it to make it like my own thing, and I loved how that one turned out. Now, these next three are all based on X-Men characters, and I'll start with one from last year, which is Stitch dressed as Nightcrawler. I think I've drawn Stitch basically every single year, so I always love finding the new thing to draw him as, and he was just so perfect to draw him as Nightcrawler, adding like the Banff smoke in the background. I love how this one turned out. Definitely one of my favorites. And this next one is another X-Men one, but it's definitely one of the more unique ones I've ever drawn because it's not the typical like TV show cartoon characters, and that's taking Hercules and Phil from Disney's Hercules. We'll be having him dressed as Cyclops and Wolverine. This initially just started as drawing Hercules as Cyclops, and I love how that one turned out. The shadowing, which just worked perfectly with the whole look of Hercules. And then someone made the comment to add Phil having dressed as Wolverine, and it all just fits so perfectly. I love the way this one turned out. Definitely one of my favorite drawings of that year. And the last of this X-Men section is taking Homer and Bart Simpson, having them dressed as Deadpool and Wolverine. I love the way this one turned out. I think their dynamics of Deadpool, Wolverine, Homer, and Bart all fit very well together. And I love adding the like the sword going through his stomach, making it look like that's the reason why he's choking him. And Deadpool and Wolverine was one of my favorite movies from last year, so this was definitely a favorite. Now, this next one is another one that was kind of inspired from a trend at the time, and that was taking Plankton, having him dressed as Freddie Mercury. Not only do I think this is just so badass and so funny, it was also around the time where they were doing like a lot of like using Plankton's voice for like AI covers of songs. And even though I'm not a huge fan of AI, I thought those were so funny. And I love taking and making him dressed as Freddie Mercury, make it look like he's just belting out one of the Queen songs and he's got the microphone with like the half the mic stand on it as Freddie Mercury did. Now, just outside the top five is a drawing from 2023 where I took Butters and had him dressed as Ken from the I'm Just Ken song sequence. I'm sure Butters just absolutely loved the Barbie movie from a few years ago, and I love how this one turned out, having with the hard hands make it look like he's even singing the song. So I love, love, love how this one turned out. And now, as we get into the top five, the next two are based off of how when movies come out the same day, they combine the names. Because the first one I'm going to talk about is not the one you're thinking of. It's Charlie Brown and Snoopy dressed as Saw Patrol. When Saw X and the Paw Patrol movie were announced to come out on the same day, and I saw that someone was calling this Saw Patrol, I was absolutely obsessed. I absolutely love that so much, and I love the Saw franchise, so that was also great. So having Charlie Brown dressed as Billy the Puppet, and then Snoopy dressed as one of the dogs from Paw Patrol, all was just so good. I love how this one turned out. I also just am obsessed with like the look of the Peanuts characters, so this is also perfect for Charlie Brown and Snoopy dressed as Saw Patrol. And of course, the one that you were thinking of when I was talking about the movie names that are combined when they come out on the same day, and that is Barbenheimer, and I drew Cat Dog dressed as Barbenheimer. I think this one turned out so good because of who is dressed as who just fits so perfectly. Cat is so much more of like the stern, like hard ass. He's like takes things more seriously, so it makes sense for him to be the Oppenheimer. And then taking Dog and having him dressed as Ken with the bright colors and the roller skates was also perfect and matches their vibes perfectly. And we're now at the top three. And at the third spot, I have one of my most recent additions to this series, and that is taking G.I. Robot and having him dressed as Indiana Jones. In a previous video, I explained the inspiration for this drawing, and that was basically taking G.I. Robot and Indiana Jones, who are two people who just really love to beat up and don't like Yahtzees, I'll call them for now. But I love this combination, and I just love how this one turned out. And also the correlation of it. I feel like G.I. Robot would find Indiana Jones to be like a hero of his. So I found that really funny, and I just think it turned out so perfect. It was literally from like mind to page how I imagined it turning out. We are now at the top two, and they are both inspired by some of my favorite films in the entire decade. At the number two spot, I have Finn and Jake from Adventure Time, dressed as Paul Atreides and a sandworm. I don't remember how this idea came into my head, but it was another one where it was like idea in my head to page. It kind of just turned out perfectly. And Dune was my favorite movie of the year from last year, Dune Part 2. I love that movie so much. And then translating like the sandworm, like kind of like crummy homemade looking costume for Jake, I just all thought looked so perfect. So I absolutely love how that turned out. And that's why it's my second favorite. And then the number one spot is a character I've already talked about, and that is Stitch dressed as Spider Punk. Spider Punk is easily one of the best parts of Across the Spider Verse, one of my favorite animated films of all time, probably one of my favorite films of all time. And I love how this one turned out, giving him the giant hair, the suit with like the leather vest and the guitar, and then also having like that yellow outline with it as well. I love the character design of Spider Punk so much, so that translated here with my love of this series. Those are my 15 favorites. What were your favorite from this video? And if you've been watching this since day one, what are some of your favorite cartoon characters and Halloween costume drawings that you've seen from me? And what ones do you want to see from me in the future for next year?